The Verdict, a Sidebar production, hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. As a part of its traditional and continuing commitment to public and community service, Crow and Dunlevy sponsors The Verdict. Also sponsored by Delta Dental, Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, and C.H. Guernsey and Company. Each week on The Verdict, we present an objective discussion of contemporary and legal issues, topical issues that will affect Oklahomans in their daily lives. The Verdict, a Sidebar production.
And welcome to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett. Thanks for joining us. And as always, I'm with one of Oklahoma's top legal experts, Kent Myers. And today, Kent, a topic that's really hot, both in political circles and in judicial circles.
Yes, and getting hotter as the summer goes along, because the U.S. Supreme Court is contributing some decisions that affect how judges are selected in Oklahoma. We're going to devote 2 shows to that subject. And it's really, as you point out, a good time of the year. We are now in the heat of the primary season. Our viewers may or may not know that there are 150 different judicial positions up for election by the voters this year, 2002 general election. We want to talk about several questions. One, do the voters really know for whom they're voting? They see names on the ballot. Should so-and-so be retained? Should they be elected versus somebody else be elected? Do they really know? And if they don't, how do they find out? Is it seemly, is it part of judicial integrity for the judges to have to be out raising campaign funds, asking for money from lawyers who will be appearing in front of those judges? Should judges be making campaign speeches? If elected, I will put every criminal in jail. If elected, anybody that does anything wrong to a child will spend the rest of their life in jail. Is that the kind of political talk that we should want from our judges? Do we want impartiality? Do we really want to know what the judge thinks before we elect the judge? Some of the topics we're going to be talking about judges at the appellate court level and at the trial court level in Oklahoma and elsewhere.
Now, at least generally speaking, federal judges are appointed and state judges are elected officials. Is that right?
Only partially. At the appellate level in Oklahoma, the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, Court of Criminal Appeals, Intermediate Court of Appeals, they are appointed, and then they run on what's called a retention ballot, should they be retained or not.
So they're appointed by the governor, and then they have to be re-elected by a vote of the people?
Correct.
Okay.
At the trial court level, they may or may not be appointed by the governor, depending on whether there's a vacancy to be filled or not. But if not, they just file for election and run just like other candidates.
So they can be appointed, they can be elected. Some states have partisan elections.
Yes.
Some states do not. So we've got a lot to talk about.
Yes, it's a really mixed bag.
Why don't we take a break? We'll come back and meet our guests. This is The Verdict with Mick Cornett and Kent Myers.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. The Verdict is pleased to have as a sponsor C.H. Guernsey and Company, providing architectural and engineering services to clients throughout the U.S. and around the world.
I'd like to offer my most sincere congratulations to the firm of Crow and Dunlevy, the employees and attorneys. Profound contributions to the state of Oklahoma for this past century, and I wish you well for this coming century. Thank you.
Happy anniversary, Crow Dunlevy, and thank you for 100 years of providing quality legal service to the state of Oklahoma. We wish you much continued success and growth.
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leading at 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go on. Wiggins had to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all of the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. Oklahoma Lawyers for Children has over 350 of the best attorneys and volunteers in Oklahoma County who donate their time and services to represent children. For more information, call 405-23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
St. Gregory's University has been changing the lives of people like me for 125 years. Affordable private Catholic education, balanced with dedication to community and service, makes St. Gregory special. We're extremely proud of our students' outstanding academic achievements and our nationally ranked athletic teams. It's when you help a student build a future of balance, integrity, and service that you change a life forever. St. Gregory's, a community for life.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers is going to introduce our guests.
We're really pleased today to have two guests that know a lot about the subject we're going to be considering, the selection of judges. Across the table from me is the Honorable Niles Jackson, United States Bankruptcy Judge for the Western District of Oklahoma. Just recently took that position after 18 very successful years as a trial judge in Oklahoma County. Judge Jackson has an interesting background that I want to pursue a little bit. He's been a reporter for AP, worked for the Peace Corps for a little while. It has credentials as a radio, TV, and newspaper reporter. He is also a member of a select task force appointed by the legislature in 1999 on judicial selection. Judge Jackson, thank you for coming.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
On my right is a longtime friend of mine that I have known since at least the time I started practicing law, because Burck started a couple of years before I did, Mr. Burck Baily. Burck has been a trial lawyer for over 40 years. He's a partner in the firm of Fellers, Snyder, Blankenship, Baily, and Tippins, a very fine law firm in Oklahoma City with Tulsa offices, I believe.
Right.
Burck is a former president of the Oklahoma Bar Association, the Oklahoma County Bar Association. He's a fellow in the American College of Trial Lawyers, which is an organization that is really for very fine trial lawyers, generally speaking, a present company accepted, I should say. And he is also a current member of Oklahoma's Judicial Nominating Commission. Burck, thank you for joining us on the Burck.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. I want to talk generally about some things that we do in Oklahoma about selecting judges. I'd like to call up a graphic that is entitled Oklahoma's Judicial Selection System. And for our viewers, it is easy to see that I've broken that down into two basic parts. The appellate courts, including the Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals, and Court of Appeals. And for those courts in Oklahoma, there is an appointment or merit selection, if you will, of those judges, and then they run for 6-year terms on what's called a retention ballot. And I'll ask our guest to explain retention ballot in just a second. And then for the trial court level judges, the district judges and associate district judges, of which we have about 150, they run for election with the electorate against opponents, if they have them, of course, on a nonpartisan, not Republican, not Democrat, nonpartisan election ballot for a 4-year term. Let me ask you, Burck, explain the retention ballot for our viewers just a little bit, will you?
Surely. As you said, Kent, at the appellate level in Oklahoma, a judge is appointed to that post, and then they are, in due course, and the length of the term is 6 years, they go on the ballot with the simple question, shall Judge so-and-so be retained in office, yes or no? And to my knowledge, there has never been a judge in Oklahoma since this process was initiated in the late 1960s who has ever been not retained.
What does that tell you?
Well,
if anything?
Yes. I think it probably suggests that there is a fear of the unknown. You know, that's probably at play there, that at least this judge or justice has been in place for a long time. There doesn't seem to be any particular opposition to this person continuing in office, and so the voters tend to say, yes, we want to keep this person.
How in the world, Burck, do the voters know whether a judge on the Supreme Court or the Court of Criminal Appeals is doing a good job, bad job, or mediocre job, absent them getting in trouble, getting arrested, or something like that? How in the world will the voters that are voting to retain or not ever know that?
My assessment of it is that they won't. You know, the Court of Civil Appeals has 12 judges on it. It's retained in exactly the same way, those judges are. And I would make just a general guess that fewer than 5% of the lawyers in the state, much less the general population, could name all 12 of those judges.
But we are moving towards an evaluation type of process. The last 2 retention cycles for, I think it's only the Supreme Court, there has been a state evaluation committee that has sent out letters to lawyers who have appeared either in pleadings or in person before the Supreme Court, and they are sent evaluations and they go back. And this committee tabulates those and submits them to the public of what the lawyers who practice before these judges think about those Supreme Court judges.
So presumably that's done through the administrative office of the courts.
It's done through a separate retention. I think the administrative office has a play in the logistics, but it is done through a separate group of people. I'm not sure how they're appointed, but the results of both retentions have been very positive toward our appellate bench.
If a lawyer appears in an appellate matter in front of the Oklahoma Supreme Court where there is simply briefs written and then a decision is rendered, the lawyer's client either wins or loses usually. There's seldom ties like there is in the All-Star game from time to time. But how does a lawyer know when it's a 9-0 decision written by one judge whether any particular Supreme Court justice did a good job or a bad job?
Only by looking at the written opinion and see if in that lawyer's viewpoint the law was followed. Other than that, I'm not sure there is a way.
Let's change the subject just a little bit. Let's see how others do it around the country. Let's look at another graphic that we've entitled Other States' Judicial Selection Systems. To some extent, they mirror what happens in Oklahoma. We now have broken it down into 3 parts. The Supreme Courts, and there you can see there's a split, basically a 21 to 29 split with 29 states appointing and 21 states electing, some partisan, some nonpartisan. When we get to the appellate courts, which only 39 states have, not all have those intermediate appellate courts, it's still a preponderance of appointment over election. But then when you get to the trial court level, you can see that more states elect their trial court than appoint them by a 30 to 20 margin. Judge Jackson, let me ask you about the current system we have on appellate judges. How do you come down on that? Do you think it's
on appellate judges?
Yes.
I think if we had, first of all, I think it's the best system between election and appointing, because some states elect their state Supreme Court judges, like Texas, on a partisan ballot, and millions of dollars go into those elections. Oklahoma has an excellent system if there was just some way we could inform the electorate about the qualities of those particular judges who are running. It is the best it can be now. It can be better.
Let me jump in here and get us to our first break. Okay. We'll be right back. We're discussing judges. Should they be appointed or should they be elected? We'll be right back on The Verdict.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311. We are C.H. Guernsey & Company. We provide engineering, architecture, and consulting services to clients across the nation and around the world. Our corporate headquarters are located in Oklahoma City, and we have branch offices across the country, including Tulsa. We have provided quality service to clients for nearly 75 years. At Guernsey, we believe in quality work and unconditional client satisfaction. To learn more about C.H. Guernsey & Company, log on to our website at chguernsey.com.
Every day, in state governments throughout the country, crucial decisions are being made that affect the lives of children and their families. But as this process takes place, children are often left voiceless. When these children raise their hands to be heard, is anyone listening? There are people listening. They are child advocates. Join us and raise your hand for kids.
Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're back on The Verdict with Judge Niles Jackson and Burck Baily. We're discussing judges and whether or not they should be appointed or elected. Kent, where are we now?
I want to focus on the election aspect. I want to focus on the appointment aspect. I want to forget about the election aspect for right now. There is an appointment system in Oklahoma that is run by the Oklahoma Judicial Nominating Commission. Burck Baily is a current member of that commission. Burck, tell our viewers what the Oklahoma Judicial Nominating Commission's purpose is and what it does.
Yes, Kent. The Judicial Nominating Commission was created in 1967 by constitutional amendment in Oklahoma following the scandal surrounding the Oklahoma Supreme Court on the
bribery on the court.
Yeah. Where the justices that were taking the money defended on the ground that they were taking campaign contributions. That didn't work. And the impeachment. Indeed, I was in the Attorney General's office at the time and drew up the articles of impeachment for Justice Johnson. The commission is comprised of 6 lawyers from the from the congressional districts as they existed at that time. And they are elected by the members of the bar in those 6 congressional districts.
So lawyers select the lawyers.
Lawyers select the lawyers, and it's a highly politicized campaign. They run for that office, and they are elected, as I was from the old 5th District.
Yes, and I was worried about you making it.
Yeah, thank you. And then the governor appoints 6 lay people, and they must be of opposite political parties. 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. And then the commission itself selects a 7th layperson. We serve terms of 6 years, except that 7th layperson serves only 2 years.
That at-large is
that's right.
Is a 2-year term.
It's a 2-year.
So you have a 7 layperson, 6 lawyer commission. That would at least facially seem like that the lay people control the commission. Is that how it actually works?
Well, I don't think it's ever been, it has not been my observation that it comes down to an issue of who is controlling the commission. The lay people make an extremely valuable contribution, in my opinion. And I think that's the opinion of the other lawyer members of the commission generally. They ask questions that frankly seem to me to be sometimes so insightful. They come at it, of course, from a different life experience than lawyers do. And I think they make an extremely valuable contribution to the work of that commission. I respect their views. I think my other brother lawyers on it very much respect their views. And I don't see that there is any effort by either lay people or lawyers to dominate or intimidate the other. We work together to find the 3 best qualified applicants for that judgeship, and we send those names to the governor.
Now, what can the governor do if he doesn't like any of the 3?
He's just out of luck. That has been attempted unsuccessfully. The law, the Constitution, indeed, is very, very clear, and he must select one of those that the commission sends up. And I might say, Kent, that the commission has before it information that the electorate would never have. The applicants must fill out extremely detailed applications covering their entire life. Then those applications are investigated by the OSBI very thoroughly. And when we get this packet of information, we know a great deal about the person who wishes to
So are you looking
nominated.
for integrity, or what's your opinion that people are looking for? What adjectives would describe the perfect judge in that situation?
Describing the perfect judge, I would defer to Judge Jackson.
About 6'3". Yes. Okay.
But my own feeling is that certainly integrity is absolutely key. I mean, that is a must. One looks for intelligence, one looks for temperament, and that is a word that's a little subjective, but I think, as has been observed in other contexts, we know it when we see it. An ability to control one's own sense of emotion and to bring to it a sense of independence and detachment.
Wisdom?
Wisdom, of course.
How do you judge wisdom, though? I mean,
that also is subjective. But, you know, this interview process, which the commission goes through, is enormously important. I have been very frankly surprised and taken aback at how important that part of the process is. You look sometimes on paper and a person will seem to have absolutely stellar credentials. Many times they do. But then in the process of interviewing them and all of these people putting their questions, unscripted questions, before this particular applicant, it gives you a sense of who that person is in a way that simply can't be duplicated in any other format.
Let me ask you, Judge Jackson, a comment on the work of the Judicial Nominating Commission as you've observed it in your many years on the bench.
As a judge, and I will tell you this is my opinion is similar to other judges, it is the best process I think that we can ever be conceived. You may disagree with the politics of the governor who makes the selection, but that governor cannot make a bad choice. Those three names who go up to the governor are all superb candidates. In fact, of the few judges who have been removed from the bench, they have all been elected.
Removed for misconduct.
For misconduct, they have all been elected. You have never been an appointed judge been removed from the bench, which speaks highly of the nominating commission and highly of the governor's choices.
So you feel like it's working?
It's an excellent process. It's thorough. The commission members are fully informed about the candidates, and the people that they send up there are very qualified.
Let me change the subject and ask you to comment on it real quickly in just the little time we have remaining. You were a member of the Legislative Task Force on Judicial Selection in 1999. What did that task force do, and what did it recommend?
The task force met for about a year. There were 20 members. We tried to determine if the current system we're working under is working. It came out with a recommendation, a majority report, that we keep the current elected system for trial judges, appointed system for appellate judges. It did recommend that we look for more diversity in race, in ethnicity, and in gender. And there was a minority report that we go to appointed positions in the big counties. But that is not accepted.
Say we've run out of time so quickly here.
Well, we're going to have these two gentlemen back for a second show.
Okay. Judge, thank you for coming by. Mr. Burck, thank you. Burck Baily, thank you.
That's all right.
Kent and I'll be back with a final word after this.
We're pleased today to have as our guest Lisa Mcallister. Lisa is a secretary in the Oklahoma City office and has been with the firm of Crowe & Dunlevy for 9 years. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ken.
We have asked you here today because of your activities with the Race for the Cure. Tell our viewers just briefly what is the Race for the Cure and why is there a Race for the Cure?
Well, the Race for the Cure was founded in 1982. It's called the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure. Susan G. Komen is a woman that lost her life to breast cancer at the age of 36. Her sister Nancy Branker started the foundation.
And it raises money for cancer research, I take it?
That's correct, for breast cancer research, screening, education.
Well, now, you've been with the firm for a number of years. How did you get involved with Race for the Cure?
Ken, I'm a breast cancer survivor of a little over 4 years, and that's how I became involved with the Race for the Cure. I thought it was important to give back because I've been so fortunate.
Well, what did you do to support Race for the Cure, particularly within the firm?
What I do within the firm is I coordinate putting together the Crow and Dunlevy race team and assigning up our participants and collecting money from sponsors around the firm to help.
What size race team did the Oklahoma City office of Crow and Dunlevy enter this year?
Well, we had over 50 Crow and Dunlevy participants.
Runners?
On our team, runners on our team.
And raised substantial sums of money, I suppose.
That's correct.
How does that 50 or 50 plus numbers compare with what the firm has done in the past?
We do, this year was our biggest team, and every year our team just seems to grow and grow.
And you're kind of in charge of getting that done?
That's correct.
Well, just in the few seconds we have remaining, why is it, Lisa, that Race for the Cure is important? What would you like our viewers to know about that?
Well, when a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer, it's important that she not walk alone. It takes a team effort to raise the funds, to put towards research, screening, testing, and just community awareness of breast cancer.
Lisa, thank you so much for talking about Race for the Cure. We're really pleased to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are back to wrap up another edition of The Verdict, and Ken, I'm glad we're going to have another show because we just really touched the surface of this issue.
Yes, this was our first salvo on the subject of should judges be elected or appointed. I think history really tells us something here. Some people are very critical of the appointive system because they say that people ought to have the right to elect, and I'm not here to say they should or should not. I just think historically it's important to remember that an elective system resulted in the payment of bribes and the imprisonment of several Oklahoma Supreme Court justices who took the money based upon the fact that they claimed they were campaign contributions, as Burck Baily indicated. We went from that to a partial appointive, partial elective system. There's always room for a relook at it to see if it can be improved. Some people would say we ought to have an appointive system all the way across the board, that the general public just does not have a way to evaluate a judge in order to make a meaningful decision. Others would say you're selling the electorate too short. They can figure it out. They will get it figured out, and they all ought to be elected. We're kind of in the middle right now. This next show, we're going to be talking about what does a judge have to do to get campaign contributions, and what kind of pressure does it put on the judge and the lawyer, and what about the free speech of a judge in a campaign?
And we'll see you then. Join us on The Verdict next week.